Thank you, Dave, and welcome everyone to the TimeProvider 4100 showcase. Let's just start off by giving you a close-up look of the TimeProvider 4100. Top there's the base unit, and then you can have a base unit with an E1T1 composite clock expansion and an or a 1 gig 10 gigabit expansion. So we'll jump into this a little bit more and go through some of the options and stuff that are available. Sorry, I'm not going to go through all 8 points here. You guys can be looking at this while I talk. I just want to point out that it does have dual minus 48 volt DC power inputs. And the Ethernet ports support NTP, PTP, synchronous Ethernet, and management. And we also support the time of day, 1 pulse per second, and 10 megahertz outputs as well. The number 2 there, the GNSS input, there is a multiband option for this, and I'll talk a little bit more about multiband in a slide in a moment or two. So the 4100 is a family of products. Our first release of the TimeProvider 4100 was the gateway clock. It's a frequency and time distribution system with multiple inputs and outputs. That's why we call it a gateway. It's a class A and B primary reference time clock. It is a enhanced primary reference time clock. It is a high performance boundary clock. And in our next release, 2.4, later this year, we will have an SSU mode. And I just want to point out here that with the technology of the enhanced PRTC and the high performance boundary clock, that enables a solution we refer to as a virtual primary reference time clock. And we're going to get more into that a little bit later today as well. Some of the attributes of the TimeProvider 4100, a lot of stuff here again, I won't cover it all. I want to point out that in the 4100 is accuracy, resiliency, and security. And under that resiliency point, I want to point out that the system is fanless. There's no moving parts. That translates to a very high mean time between failure. Also want to point out have options for the oscillators. Our rubidium is a laser-driven MAC rubidium. We also have a Super OCXO or OCXO option. And multiband, promise to talk to you a little bit more about multiband. We need to understand the difference between multi-constellation, GNSS, GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, Beidou, wide area augmentation, and things like that is what we get from GNSS. Multiband is different. Multiband gives us the ability to track L1 and L5 of the GPS constellation, and similarly for GLONASS, Galileo, and Beidou. So the little chart there on the right comes from our management system. And you see colors representing our constellations, and you see shades of color identifying L1 and L2 bands. Multiband becomes important for those applications that require precision, such as enhanced PRTC and high performance boundary clock. A few more things here with security. We have Radius and TACACS that support authentication, authorization, and accounting. The Radius also supports two-factor authentication. 4100 also supports the new security requirements, or at least prong C and prong D in the IEEE 1588 2019 release. I believe I've already mentioned that the TimeProvider 4100 does support software redundancy. Put this up here just to kind of show you how that's laid out when we do it. Current release of software supports active and standby. We use an Ethernet 2 interconnection between the two units with Cat5 cable. That's a heartbeat. Lets the active and standby unit know the other one's there and available. And then Ethernet 4 is a fiber connection where we're doing all the management and transfer of signaling and stuff like that. All the fast stuff is happening on Ethernet 4 with that fiber connection. So it gives us a high availability for Ethernet timing services such as NTP and PTP. In summary, the TimeProvider 4100 is a flexible family of products that provides accurate, reliable, and secure time and frequency timing services for your packet networks. Has functionality for a gateway clock with SSU functionality, Class A and B primary reference time clock, can be an enhanced primary reference time clock. It can also be a high performance boundary clock. Thank you for listening. Dave, back to you.